Congressman, good morning to you.
Hey, what's going on, brother?
How you doing this morning?
You know, if I was doing any better, I'd be...
Triplets?
Yeah, that's it. That's a good one. I realized I had no analogy there.
That's all right.
I knew how it started, but not how it ended. If I was any better, I'd trail off.
Yeah, the story of my career right there in a nutshell. All right, let's get some reaction to some things. Give me your take on SCOTUS.
I mean, great pick. Kavanaugh's great. Yeah, I mean, the president really, of his 3 or 4 finalists we were seeing, all of them were fantastic. I like that Amy Cohen lady, and you know, everything I hear, she may be the next pick. She's only 46 years old, which gives her even 7 more years theoretically than this guy.
Right, very impressive woman. Yeah, very impressive person overall.
We need to find. I think we need to find start putting 25-year-olds on the Supreme Court that we know, because you know they can last 70 years or whatever. So.
That's right. We don't have to worry about this.
But I'll tell you, this is really big for the conservative movement. I mean, I think John Roberts will play kind of the moderating swing role a little bit now, and as he has in the past. And to an extent, there's nothing wrong with a court that's somewhat unpredictable as long as it's following the Constitution. That's the key. But this new guy, Kavanaugh, everything I've seen and read and heard about him, it's a guy that loves his country. It's a guy that's not here to please any necessarily conservative or liberal movement. He's just going to follow the Constitution, and frankly, that typically favors conservatives because we follow that.
Yeah, and it seems to me that, it's not one of those, well, I don't know, there's not much about this guy, how are we going to know? There's a million pages of stuff with his signature on it in some way, shape, manner, or form.
Well, and think about this. I mean, this is where the Democrats, again, as they did in their press release, opposed Justice XXX.
Right.
They didn't know.
Right.
They were opposed to anybody. And what you have with this guy is the president, when he ran, when President Trump ran, he said, look, here's the deal, America. Here are the 25 people that I would consider for the Supreme Court. That was out there. And, people that are trying to bring equivalency to Mitch McConnell, not putting in Merrick Garland, are wrong because, that was in the middle of a presidential election where a conservative leader on the Supreme Court died. This is different. Justice Kennedy made the decision that he was ready because he was a Republican appointee. He was ready under a Republican president to hang it up. He could have stayed in a few more years, but he decided this was time because he thought, it is fair for a Republican to name my Republican replacement. And by the way, again, the president had put out the names of people he would appoint, and the American people elected him. So, this is, the left can try to be indignant, and I get it. I mean, their base is dragging them so far over to the left, they have no choice. This is really shaky ground to stand on. We were spending some time with Congressman Hultgren in the last half hour, and I brought this up. Millions are going to die because of tax cuts. Millions are going to die because of net neutrality. Millions are going to die because of the mandate rollback. Millions are going to die. Millions of women now are going to die because of Mr. Kavanaugh. Maybe it's time for some new talking points. I know. Well, I'm on the Energy and Commerce Committee, and we were doing some debate. I don't remember what the issue was, but we have on our farm bill that says, look, if you're an able-bodied American without kids and no disability, right, you basically have to have work requirements for food stamps. There's 179,000 people in Illinois that basically qualify as between the age of 18 and 50, totally able to work. They just are taking food stamps. So we say you either have to work or we'll put you in a job training program. I remember Jan Schakowsky, right, from the North Shore, sitting in that debate going, Republicans are getting ready to literally, and she did say the word literally because I thought that's actually not literally, to literally take food out of the mouths of children. And so the idea that we're going to come in our creepy Hamburglar outfit and a kid's going to be eating his Happy Meal and we're going to be like, nope, give me that. Give me that. I'm going to take that. I'm taking that because I don't want you to eat food. This is the kind of garbage like Republicans don't want children to eat food. I mean, it's like, new talking points, please. We can have some real conversations, and you can be a left-wing liberal, and I frankly don't mind that. We need left-wing liberals out there somewhere. But let's talk realistically. Yeah, because it's always so over the top. The hyperbole just gets out of hand. And as you mentioned, the XX that you had talked about, for people who don't know about that, I don't remember the group, but had tweeted out that XX is the worst possible. They didn't care who it was. Nope. Insert name here. It was just a flunky that was on the keyboard, didn't type the name in. You could put George Washington, and you're right. They'd opposed it, and I mean, this is what we're dealing with is just this kind of continual rhetoric and angriness. And, look, can you imagine if I'd have said on your show that President Obama is not my president? Right. That would have made national headlines.
Yep.
But yet it's a hashtag they use, not my president. They don't even recognize that Donald Trump is the president.
Yep. Well, you can go ahead and not recognize it, but the machinations are still going to take place whether you recognize it or not in this particular case. If you were a betting man, October confirmation, or is there something going to pop up to derail this?
Yeah, I think, my guess is probably around October because, there's all this talk about, like Kowski and Collins and I'm sure there's probably going to be some difficulty there. But this guy, I look at him and I say, I don't think he's not really, the hardcore kind of conservative. I think he's going to be plenty conservative, but I think they're going to have a hard time avoiding him. And frankly, I think you still might get a Democrat or two out of this.
It'll be interesting to see.
We should get 40 Democrats out of this, but maybe one or two.
Keep our eyes open and see. Now, the president really rocking the boat over in Brussels this morning, goes right after Germany, Russia by extension, and there's a lot of pearl clutching going on.
Yeah. Look, the Germans, I just saw an article this morning that said the Germans were caught. There's a picture of them training with broomsticks.
Yes.
The army. I know some of the people in the German Army, the German Air Force, and they're great people. They want to go to war with us, right? They're like, let's go. And their country has such World War II guilt, and frankly, they've been skipping their investments. This is a country that should be investing quite a bit in military and defense, and it isn't. And so I think the president, going there with kind of an attitude is a good thing. Now, here's the key. The key will be he can go to NATO very tough, and he should. And he read a riot act to the Germans today about the Nord Stream 2, which is actually a really big issue where they're basically teaming up with the Russians. Now, the question is going to be when he goes and meets with Vladimir Putin, what he has to be cautious about, if I was advising him, is don't look like you're trying to buddy up to Putin. Be as tough with Putin as you are with NATO. There is nothing wrong with saying that, there are areas we want to try to find common ground with the Russians. You're not going to find much, but there's nothing wrong with doing that. But don't make it look like you're buddying up to Putin and excoriating NATO. That's going to put a lot of us in a weird position.
And as you look at the numbers that are spent on NATO, it's quite obvious when you crunch some of them. You don't even have to crunch them. Some of the allies are not paying their way.
Certainly not, and there are a few that are. And I think taking this message is important. But I think also reiterating the importance of NATO, and this is where, what I would remind Americans is we get about as much out of NATO as NATO gets out of us. Like it is, yes, we are a benefit to NATO, but we're not a charity for NATO. There is benefits to us. For instance, the only time they ever invoked Article 5, which is an attack on one is an attack on all, is after 9/11. And NATO has been providing, half again as many troops as we have in NATO in Afghanistan since the very beginning.
Okay, yeah, something to keep in mind before fully excoriating NATO for not getting things done. Yeah, that's a pretty important thing to remember, too. And before I let you go, reaction to the rescue in Thailand.
It was unbelievable. It's one of those things where we get so kind of swallowed up in bad news, and because it sells, right? It's right. More interesting. But this was kind of a fun thing to watch the world unite and get behind, and I'll be interested to hear the interview with these kids because, at one point you're underwater going through a 15-inch wide area. No, thank you, sir. No, thank you.
Yeah. From a guy like you who flies airplanes with your hair on fire, the idea of crawling through that cave, not all that appealing to you.
Yeah, and I'm dive certified, and I wouldn't do that if you paid me $1 million. Maybe $1 million I'd try, but that's it.
No, I have no interest in it at all, and all the applause in the world for the guys who got in there and got those kids out of there.
Amen.
Congressman, as always, thanks for carving time out for us. I know how busy you are. I look forward to our next chat.
Yep, anytime. Take care.